In this video, we are going to take a look into the two methods available in Cakewalk by which we can convert the content of a track into its processed output. We will also be taking a brief look into why it's actually beneficial to do this. Among the two methods, we are first going to take a look into the freeze method. So let's consider this instrument track in which the vital instrument plugin is generating the sound by taking in this Midi as input. The generated sound then flows through the effects inside the Pro Channel modules and the effects rack. All this processing needs CPU power, but when we freeze a synth, it replaces the track with the audio that we are supposed to hear after the effects rack. We can freeze the synth by clicking on this star kind of button. It might take some time depending on the content of the track, and once that's done, all the plugins in that track are removed from the CPU and thus are not contributing to the load on the CPU. But now we have some limitations like these. In the channel strip, we will only be able to edit the pan control and the final output volume, but now we can edit this clip like we can edit any other audio clip. But we will not be able to edit the MIDI notes or even open up the instrument plugin. We might be able to open up the effects plugin, however, any change that we make here will not be translated into this clip unless we unfreeze the synth by clicking on the button again. This freeze option is also available for audio tracks such as this one, but in this case it will be called freeze track. Both are technically same, it's just the name is different. I would say that freezing an audio track has equal importance as freezing an instrument track, even though there is no processing required for the initial generation of the sound. I say this because take a look at the effects plugins in this single track. This alone might even require more processing than this instrument track, so it will be better to freeze this track as well. We can freeze multiple tracks by selecting them, then holding down Ctrl, then clicking on the freeze button. And again, it will take time depending on the content of all the tracks selected. Once we have frozen a track, there are actually two kinds of unfreeze commands that we can do. The first one is obviously the regular one, which we can do by simply clicking on the same button, and the second one is quick unfreeze, which we can do by holding down Shift and then clicking on the button. Because we did a quick unfreeze on this track, now it is also possible to do a quick freeze on this same track by doing the same action of holding down Shift key while pressing this button. But let's just say we did some edits and also some changes in the sound design of the instrument plugin and also some changes in the effects plugins. If we want those changes to be baked into the frozen track, we have to do the regular freezing by simply clicking on the button. If we do a quick freeze by holding down Shift, then it will revert back to the state of the track which was created in the previous freeze command. And of course, this is much quicker because no new file is being created. It's simply bringing back the audio file from the previous freeze command. If we right click on the freeze button on any of the tracks, we can get to the freeze options. Here we can decide how the freeze function will be carried out. Among these options, what actually would matter is the track effects, which if we disable, will not bake the effects into the audio, which also means we will be able to edit these effects and actually hear the changes when the track is in the freezed condition or frozen condition, whatever it is. Then another audible difference that we will be able to see is the remove silence, which if we check will not render the silence in a track like this one. Let me freeze this track so you will be able to see it for yourself. See, this separation of audio files will not have been there if this option was unchecked. It would have been a single audio file from the beginning of the events to the end of the events in the track. Oh, and by the way, we can control when the audio files should be separated in this gate settings. Alright, that's it. Let's move on to the second method. But before that, let me introduce you to the concept of bouncing. Consider this track. There are a lot of MIDI clips in it, and if we want to combine them, we select all of them and then right click, then hit bounce to clips. So now it's all a single MIDI clip. This can also be done with audio clips like these. We select the clips like this and then right click, then hit bounce to clips. Now those two different audio clips are going to become one single audio clip. Unlike MIDI clips, when we are doing that with audio clips, it also has some additional benefits. Like for instance, if we stretch a clip or transpose it, it is likely to introduce some artifacts. And when we bounce that audio clip, we might be able to get rid of those artifacts. But this bouncing is on the clip level. The bouncing that we are interested in is on much higher levels. Let's take this track as an example. Let's say we want this MIDI clip as an audio clip so that we can reverse this sound. One way of doing this is, of course, freezing this track, but we don't need the entire MIDI in this track to be converted into audio. So now it's time to introduce the second method, bounce to tracks. To do this, we select the clip and then click on tracks, then go to bounce to tracks. So here we get all the options available to bounce, and the first one is the destination, and I want the converted audio in a new track. Then we can choose the format. Of course, I want it to be in stereo, and since there is no conversion happening between sample rate and bit depth, we don't need any dithering. Then in what to bounce, we can choose the source, and of course the source category should be tracks, at least for now. And right now the piano track is selected. We cannot select any of the other tracks because we already selected the track while selecting the MIDI clip. Then in mix and render, we can enable or disable the track effects if we want to. Just so you know, enabling the 64-bit engine can sometimes increase the speed if 64-bit plugins are involved in that particular track. Then in range, we can adjust the time selection, but we already have it selected while we were clicking on the clip. So now all we have to do is click on OK. But once we have all these settings selected, we can actually save this as a preset. So we won't have to go through all the settings every time we need to bounce a track. Create preset track bounce? OK. Overwrite existing preset? OK. And that's it. Now this MIDI clip is going to be converted into an audio clip. There we have it. Now we can select that audio clip, then go to process, apply effect, reverse. Nice. This is the exact same thing that I did to get this. So what I actually did is bounce one of the clips in this twinkle track and then reversed it and placed it here to get a smooth transition like this. And yes, we can bounce any kind of content. It does not have to be just MIDI. Alright, now let's get a little more deeper into the concept of bouncing. Let's try bouncing 4 different tracks at the same time. First, I'm going to select a time selection like this. Then select the tracks that I want to bounce. First, I'm going to go with the bass guitar, then these 2 tracks, then this twinkle. This is how it sounds. Now we are going to go into the tracks, then click on bounce to tracks. Of course, we want this destination to be new track and the tracks that we want are selected. Then we can make sure that the options that we want in the mix and render are selected, and then we can simply click OK. It will take a bit of time as we have quite some selections. And once that's done, we have the 4 tracks bounced into 4 new separate tracks. So now let's see the different source categories. The first one is of course tracks, which means the output that we get is taken directly from the track outputs. Now when we switch it to tracks through entire mix, this option becomes suddenly available, which means the new audio clips that we get will be the outputs of the bus tracks. That is why the bus effects and automation and things related to bus become valid with this source category. Then let's go to the buses. So right now we can only select these buses, and that is because these buses are the only buses involved with these tracks. These 2 tracks in this pink kind of color goes to guitar bus, then these 2 tracks in this blue kind of color goes to the sidechain bus, and some of the tracks in here have some send signals to the reverb bus. And all these buses eventually end up in the master bus. That's why these buses are available now. And then we have hardware outputs. which is very much similar to the entire mix, which is going to combine all these tracks into a single audio clip, which I'm going to show you now. I'm going to click OK. And here we can see all these 4 tracks combined into a single audio clip. I did skip over one of the categories, so let's go back to it now. You see this Sitala out? This is actually a track folder. It doesn't matter what's in it, but let's just focus on the content of this Sitala out folder. So that's it. Now what I'm going to do is select the timed range again and then go to tracks, bounce to tracks, then change this source category into track folders. Now we can choose the content of whichever track folder that we want to bounce. I only want Sitala, so that's selected now. Make sure we have the destination as new track and then simply click OK. Now here we have the entire content of the track folder combined into one audio clip. Now here is some additional info. When I hit play and stop, we can hear some sound still remaining, and that is the reverb. Let's say there is also some delay. Then it goes like this. See, it's still remaining even after we stopped the playback. So the sound will not end right at the end of the clip. So when we bounce, we have to take that into consideration. What we can do is mute the following clip by pressing K on the keyboard. Then adjust the time selection in a way it will accommodate the following reverb or delay or whatever. Then when we bounce the track, we will get what we need. Yep, we got the remaining sounds. And then we can toggle back the muted clip by pressing K again on the keyboard. And that's it for this video. Leave a like if you found it useful, and in the next video we will see how we can export the projects from Cakewalk so that anyone can hear your music like any other audio file or through any streaming services. And with that, this is ADK and I'll catch you in the next video.